All right. Good evening, everyone. I'll call this regularly scheduled meeting of Bridgewater Town Council to order. As always, the town of Bridgewater is located in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and it is our privilege to be here. The agenda has been circulated. Are there any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Newell, seconded by Deputy Mayor McDonald. All those in favor? Agenda is approved. Announcements from councillors. I know we had the Pride Parade, and then a whole bunch of Pride events this week in Bridgewater. So thank you to Lunenburg Pride, who put in a lot of work, and the parade was fantastic. And I know they had the after event, and we had the flag raising, which was also very well attended. And they had the swim and other things around the community. So thank you to them for that work, and thank you to a lot of members of the public who showed their support, either in just watching the parade or attending some of the events, including the flag raising. Councillor Newell.
Speaking of events that went really well, all right. Well, we had Canada Day, of course, on July 1st. You would have guessed, happens every year. But from what I understand from the comments, it was an incredible turnout. We got, I think, overall really lucky with the weather, and people seemed to have a great day. It was awesome. We had a lot of comments going as far as it was the best Canada Day in years. So a lot of really positive feedback and some great energy on King Street. I think the businesses were really happy. And so just really appreciate everyone who contributed and came out to that. It was a good day.
Yeah, and thank you to our council team and staff team and the volunteers who put in a lot of time and effort, especially during the day. But this is something that really kicks off shortly after Canada Day and prepares for the following Canada Day. So a lot of work by a lot of people goes into this, and I only heard positive feedback from folks, and it was really well attended for sure. And the weather, a little bit of rain, but as I remind folks, it's Environment Canada, not Environment Bridgewater. So if you're concerned with the weather, you can talk to the feds, not our wheelhouse. Any other announcements from members of council? All right, hearing none, we will move on to delegations. We have Mr. Frank here to discuss a tree on Queen Street. So welcome, Mr. Frank. As you have our delegation, we have a couple of time delegations. So you have 10 minutes. That doesn't include any questions that council may have.
Oh, okay.
So the floor is yours.
All right, thank you.
I know you have your presentation up. Can you flip through using the...
Yeah, I'm just going to make a little blurb here first, and then we'll go through the pictures.
Okay,
yeah.
You've got the clicker there right beside you?
Yes, wonderful.
Okay, perfect.
Well, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight in the interest of self-preservation. If this pine tree falls on my house or kills me in my sleep, and I told you so won't really help. So I am trying to get this tree down by any means necessary before the hurricane seasons, which have been getting worse, as you know. And I'm asking for a definite plan of some sort. After reviewing the photos and correspondence, is there anybody who thinks we should just bury our heads in the sand and hope that Mother Nature is as kind as she was when the first tree fell down? Anyway, maybe you haven't read the correspondence yet. I'm not sure. But if you were living under this tree, what lengths would you go through to remove it? And anyway, we'll just go through a few photos. Has anybody had a chance to read the correspondence? Okay.
Yep.
This photo here just shows how close that pine tree is to my front veranda. Like it's it's less than, I don't know how many, I didn't measure it, but you can see the property line is right where that little lawn ornament is there. And the tree is on the neighbor's lawn. It's not my tree. Okay, that just shows you how close there. Same sort of view as well. Oops. There, that just gives you an idea of the type of tree that we're dealing with there. It's quite a big tree. And, if that, I'll show you where my bedroom is, but when the first tree fell, I was awake. It was 7:30 in the morning. It was coming right for me. And the top fell in and the bottom fell out, and it just all piled up in the only safe spot that there was. And anyway, that was just a wake-up call. But this next tree is a lot closer to me, to the property, to the house, and to my bedroom. So I'd be killed in my sleep if this when this next one goes. There's a picture of the one that fell during Hurricane Lee, and it's right on the corner of Empire and Queen. And you know, I don't know what the tourists think of this when they see that, but anybody for a case of beer would take that and level it off anyway. There's a picture of the tree. My house is the green one behind there. You see it? Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's a 100-year-old house. If it falls, it's not going to be a fixer-upper. And where are you going to live in January, you know, if it comes down, right? And anyway, that's just a picture of the type of thing we're dealing with. It's top heavy. I have pine trees as well, but they've been looked after by an arborist, right? This one has been neglected. There it is there again. And that gives you an idea there of what you're looking at in the storms. When you see that whipping around in the storm, you just would not believe it, you know, when the wind catches that. And another picture of the infamous tree. This shows you how close it is to the power lines, which when that other one fell, the power was out for days. People from Florida were here trying to fix it, right? So this one's going to go as well. It's going to knock the power out when it falls as well. So that just shows you how close it is to the power lines. And then we're back where we started. Or there, that shows you, you see the pine tree there, and how it shows you how close it is to the street and the sidewalk. So maybe, you know, there might be a way that you could say, well, it's 33 feet from the center of the road and I'm claiming this tree and it's got to come down. And there's a picture there. You can see the house, which is green in the corner, and the tree hanging over it. So, you know, it's a disaster waiting to happen. And there's there's a picture of what it looked like when the first one came down in Lee. And like I say, it just buckled on itself. My bedroom where I sleep was right there. So, you know, it makes me a little nervous. Maybe I wouldn't be quite as nervous if the first tree hadn't already fallen down. They were both planted 100 years ago. They're equidistant from the sidewalk. You can tell, like, you know, they were planted together at the same time. And the other one, if you look at what's left of it, is hollow. They rot from the inside, turn to powder, and they turn hollow, right? So this one is in no great shape at all. And see if I'm going the right way here. I guess that's the end there. I seem to have come to a brick wall. But anyway, this is just my cry for help to see if somebody can, you know, I don't know. Am I going to have to pay for it? Is the town? Is the power corporation? You know, who's going to actually pay for this tree to be removed?
And just so, have you spoken to the neighbor about the tree?
I did. You can see there's a maple tree that I had to settle with first. And there's a maple tree that's right close to the house, which I had to, that one there, you can see that maple hanging over the house. I had to kind of settle that first. And I did approach her about this tree, offering to pay half, even though it's not even on my land. And she said, no, she wasn't interested in the tree coming down. It's like, oh, and can't we save it? But it's rotten. It doesn't give any shade. In the forest, it's had its life. You know, but no, I did approach the neighbor about I'm not even sure if I spoke to the owner actually, but whoever lives there, the woman that lives there, I spoke to her and she wasn't interested in cooperating with the maple. So I kind of gave up. She actually hung up on me saying that she wasn't the one that wanted it coming down. And so there's no sign of responsibility or cooperation there of any kind.
So I think staff have, through their correspondence with you, explained that because the tree's on private property, it's not a town tree, and so this would be a civil matter between two property owners. So the town wouldn't come and cut the tree down. I don't know about Nova
Maybe
Scotia
they
Power.
can
but-
force the owner to, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, and staff can probably advise a little bit more, but my understanding is this would be, it's a private tree on private property. So
Isn't
we
there a
need to-
law though that has to be, that if it's within 33 feet of the center of the road that you can claim it?
No, I don't think
No.
that would, no.
No, the only recourse we had, and as was mentioned in the correspondence, is under the dangerous and unsightly properties.
Well, I think that kind of qualifies as dangerous and unsightly. If it doesn't, I don't know what does. Yeah. But anyway, it's cheaper for me to pay to have it cut down myself than to get a lawyer enforcer to take it down. So like, I'm just looking for some common sense somewhere. I'm reaching out.
Yeah, so again, I would certainly, I can't tell you what to do, but I would suggest talking to the neighbor, because it is the tree that's on the neighbor's property, but it wouldn't be the town's role to
Remove it.
get
Yeah,
kind of get in there and remove
They
it.
have no interest in doing anything except burying their head in the sand and hoping that hope Mother Nature is kind. But it's better for us humans to keep control and to let Mother Nature drop it where she wants to. But is there anybody here that disagrees that that's dangerous and unsightly, the sister to it? Does anybody disagree with me? Am I?
Well, it'd be hard for council to give an opinion on, just based on photos, though. We're not arborists, and we haven't all gone to
Well, I
see the
have
tree.
had the arborist that I used spoke to the neighbor and told them that both of those trees are rotten and they should come down. No response. But anyway,
Yeah, I think it would be, speaking to the neighbor would be your best course of
I
action.
might as well beat my head against the wall because I'm getting no response, no hint of cooperation or any interest of any kind.
Councillor, why not?
Was that the notification from the arborist in writing?
I'll get it in writing. I don't have
wanna
it
get
in
involved
writing.
a civil matter, but I'm just.
Yeah, I don't have it in writing, but no, but yeah,
Yeah.
I will, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, at the end of the day, I think it is a civil matter between two private property owners.
Yeah.
So that's,
Well, it won't be when the power goes out. It won't be a civil matter then,
yeah, you'd have to then talk to Nova Scotia Power, but again, we wouldn't get involved.
I have been speaking to them, like I say, I want this tree down any way I can. That's why I'm coming here. I'm trying everything I can.
Yeah, no, I
Get it down
understand.
before the storms come.
And
I've talked to the Power Corporation and they're familiar with the tree. And it's on his list. He told me it would be down before the fall, but who knows, right? If I can believe that or not.
Yeah.
again, it falls outside of the scope of the town's jurisdiction, except for under the dangerous and unsightly. And we did have our dangerous and unsightly administrator go visit the property to make an assessment. And they have deemed it not to meet the criteria required to deem it dangerous. And therefore, there's no action that the town can take.
Oh, well, I mean, you do what you can do, I guess, but if you were sitting under that tree in a storm, I think you'd realize that it is dangerous.
Again, the trying to speak to the neighbor is probably the best course of action. And if not, then.
Like I say, have you ever tried talking to a stick?
So, yeah, I don't know if council has any other questions.
All right, well, I tried. I'm still looking for common sense somewhere. But anyway, I hope I hear from you. Is my 10 minutes up, or are there any questions?
Yeah, no, I not seeing any hands around the
Yeah.
council table.
Yeah, well, no suggestions, just go see a lawyer, in other words.
Well, again, I'm suggesting you try to talk to the neighbor. You said you talked to the neighbor about the maple tree, but have you talked to them about the pine tree and those? That's
I mean, even a casual observer would say, yes, there's something wrong here, but if it was my tree, I think I'd do something about it. So how I don't know if I can speak to somebody like that, and it's just like when I see a rat trap against the house and then I wonder, well, why are there all these little piles of rocks and sticks all over the place? Rats love piles of rocks and things like that. If you could see how far that house has gone downhill in the last 60 years, you'd know. They used to be immaculate.
Yeah, it's the town's role isn't to arbitrate between two
No, I
two landowners.
understand that,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that again, that's
Yeah.
all the suggestion that we would have is speaking to the neighbor, and then obviously you'll have to take the course of action that you.
All right, if it does come down, then you realize that I was right, it is dangerous. And some people would call the other one unsightly. I don't think the tourists would think much of it anyway, driving through. Yeah.
Yeah, again, the town doesn't take down trees on private property.
No, I know there's no common sense in this world. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next delegation, we have Bill McGinnis. Talk about parks and food trucks, and just a reminder, well, as you know, as we have delegations and we receive information, council doesn't make a decision the same night we receive the information. That gives us time, if we have questions, to get back to you with those questions that we have and gather information as well. So I know this is not your first time.
I'm going to be very brief. I sent an email to the mayor and CAO and each councillor, so I assume you're aware of what I'm going to talk about. In my old age, I have the pleasure of going around to all the various parks around, and Shipyards Landing is one of the best parks I've ever attended to in the province of Nova Scotia. Forget about the town of Bridgewater. And so I have a sort of an extreme view on what should be occurring there. And what I've seen this summer recently, and many others who I've talked to there, they're not happy about. And we're going to talk about food trucks. Now, the reason why I came to speak to you this evening is I've modified my view just a bit. I don't want to ban all food trucks in Bridgewater. I just want to ban them on town-owned property. Private property, have no problem. But in Shipyards Landing, there is at least 8 parking spots for boats with trailers, and they leave their trailer there. So that reduces the number for residents who can't walk to the park. They take their car to the park, so they can park there. And when some of these, all of them that I've seen, there's 4 that come there. And they park real long, and they take as many as 6, 7 parking spots. And some take 2 or 3. And they block the view of the river. Now, I don't know if you're taking the time to go down to Shipyards Landing. At sunset, there's people there taking photographs. It is absolutely gorgeous. And if I got the time, I'll tell you, here a couple of Friday nights ago, it was Fresh Air Films were on. Good crowd for that. There were some osprey diving into the river getting their supper. There was of all things, a big blue heron landed on the wharf. There were 2 kids there fishing. I mean, it is a beautiful spot, and I don't want it ruined by very, very large food truck operations. I don't know if you've seen some of them. And I don't think, I really think, and my modification to my email to you is, I think all food trucks should be banned from the parking lot. If they have to go down to Shipyards Landing, they shouldn't be in the parking lot and taking up all the parking spaces. And so I want you to consider that for the residents of Bridgewater, because it is a very, very popular park. I'm willing to bet you if you go down there right now, you'll see as many as 20 to 30 cars. Very popular. And I don't want it ruined. And I'm sure you don't either. So I ask that you take into, and the other problem with the food truck bylaw, if I understood it properly, you pay $200 for the year for your permit to operate your food truck, which means you can operate 365 days a year in that spot. Now you gotta move it every day, but you can go to that spot and you can operate. I just think that's wrong. So I ask that you consider it. And I don't think there's much you can do about it this year because all the permits probably have been issued and that type of thing. But for next year, I would like to see some restrictions on food trucks at Shipyards Landing. Any questions?
Questions for Councilor Wenham?
Thank you for coming. I agree. Shipyards is one of the nicer spots in town. And I'm one that would regularly go to a food truck, but stay and eat while I'm at Shipyards Landing. I think it draws people that way. So my question, Bill, is it so much the location of those trucks? I know there's one fairly big unit that comes and parks there that does block the view of the river. If that were facing in another direction, or is your concern being on the premises at all?
I don't think they should be on the parking lot.
At all? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Not only that, any of them.
Any of the town owned?
You're taking up parking spaces.
Mhm.
For people who can't even get out of their vehicles. A lot of the older folks just drive down there and sit and, they have their cup of coffee or what have you, and they sit there and they drink it. I know they don't come that up. Well, one of them doesn't come that often,
Mhm.
but there's a precedent being set. And I think it should be nipped in the bud before it goes too far.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? Thank you.
Thank you
Again,
so much.
I will say that we did get your correspondence, and that was forwarded to staff, who I do know have been talking to the vendor of the very large one to express the concerns, because I do know that one does take up, I think you said 6 or 7 spaces, which it does. And so we've had a few other folks also say, like, is there anywhere else it can go, or can you change the way it's parked so it doesn't take up at least those spaces? So we hear you on blocking the view in the river, and I know you and I have had conversations about the folks that perhaps can't get out of their car, but they want to still go to the park. So appreciate that. So we'll continue working on that.
Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Wish me happy golfing.
Until hockey season.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. I believe we have another delegation to come to speak. So we've had our 2-time delegation. So if you want to come forward and introduce yourself,
You'll have to excuse me. Mr. Bill Gates decided now was a great time to update Windows, so I'm going to have to read this off my phone. So I do apologize for the rudeness of me looking down at my phone here. My name is Scott Clements. I'm the owner of 107.9 Go Rock, and I just wanted to take 2 minutes of the council's time. One is just to talk about the 2012 social media policy, in which talks about the official town website should be the primary and authoritative source for public information. Unfortunately, that's not exactly what people are experiencing today. The quarterly newsletter, while decent, is really just promotional and not timely. The all news page is inconsistent and sometimes has gone weeks without updates. And in practice, the mayor's personal Facebook page has become a de facto breaking news source for town information. Facebook is not an appropriate primary source of official communication. It is difficult to search, difficult to reference, and later on, posts will get pushed down and buried. There is no reliable archive, there's no indexing, and there's no guarantee the content will remain available, as it can be deleted by simply the whim of the mayor. This is not sustainable. It is not accessible for residents or the media who need historical, accurate information, and it places too much responsibility and too much influence in the hands of one single elected official using a personal platform. Should the mayor change or stop posting, the town's main communication channel will disappear overnight. Second, the Bridgewater has a wonderful communications specialist, a true professional who I enjoy working with, and I want it to be clear that this next issue has nothing to do with her. The problem is that she has no communication or media policy guide in her role. A policy guide would help define how information is released, who is responsible, what standards what standards ensure consistency, neutrality, accessibility. Right now, communications seems ad hoc and personality driven. Without a policy, the town's messaging can be unintentionally dependent on one single individual's social media presence. It is not fair to staff, it is not fair to residents, nor the media. Official information should come from the institution, not an individual Facebook page. Residents and the media do deserve a stable, predictable, professionally managed communication system that aligns with a policy. So I am asking for two things. One is for the council to reaffirm the 2012 social media policy by making the town's website the primary, timely, authoritative source of information and not the mayor's Facebook page. And then two would be to create a formal communications and media policy for the town of Bridgewater so that the staff can have the structure and tools they need to keep people properly informed. It is about transparency, continuity, and trust, ensuring residents can rely on the town of Bridgewater itself and not Facebook for accurate and accessible information updates. That is all. Thank you.
Any questions from Council? Councilor Wynot?
Mr. Why not?
When you've looked at other municipalities' policies, what specific things stood out there that we should?
You know, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I meant to put it in my notes, but I cut it for time. MODL is brilliant. It is one of the finest documents I have ever read. Not only is it a social media guide, it's a communications guide. I don't come just here with problems. I want to come with solutions. I would gladly sit on a committee with yourself, Mr. Wynot, and help do that. But I would suggest that MODL may be likely the best one I have ever read, bar none.
So I know the mayor does post on her page, Mayor McLean Weil,
Yeah.
but I'm just wondering what specific things. I mean, we could dig up the policy, but is there anything there that stood out to you that we should be incorporating or look to incorporate or have staff look into?
I would suggest the entire document. You could take the MODL out, put Town of Bridgewater in, and verify that document in the Town of Bridgewater, including all of yourselves, because I want everybody here to succeed. Mr. Mayor, you and I have had our differences. I want you to do a great job. I want to be your cheerleader for you. I just really would like to settle this communications issue so that we can all move forward. And I honestly think the MODL one is a great starting point.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
My question is actually for our CAO. Most of the communications, in large part, and I would really have to go back and kind of check myself on this. A lot of it is dictated by the MGA. Is that correct? Where and how?
That would be for our public notices. So for
Right.
meetings, bylaw changes, those types of things where we're mandated to
Yes.
post on our website. They just changed it recently so that we can use the website as our posting platform for those types of notices. So those are a little bit different than maybe some communication pieces.
Okay.
And you're doing a wonderful job of that. Yeah, that's why I did not mention it in my notes.
Just to follow
Yep.
additional to that. So the information that you're looking for is things that are happening at council, or what is it that is missing right now?
It would be anything that would be newsworthy. So it could be crime stats. It could be information about bylaw changes, which I say has been fairly well done. It could be information about meetings that, like, our job in the media is to try to make it as easy and accessible as possible for people to participate in civic engagement. And what I'm concerned about is that that's not in place because there's no policy in place. I just want to make it easy for the people of Bridgewater and surrounding areas, or people who may own a business in Bridgewater who may not live here, to be able to get timely access to information.
Okay, and that information would be like Canada Day, or is it things like that that's missing?
No, some of those things are done very well. Full disclosure, I'm also a vendor of the town of Bridgewater, and we ran advertising for your Canada Day. It's not necessarily that. It's more of the harder news, the information that citizens would want in order to participate in civic engagement. Promotionally, I think you've done a wonderful job.
Okay.
And I'm not just saying that because I run advertising for you.
Other questions from members of council? Council Caldwell?
Hi,
Yes.
I'm a journalist by trade.
Wonderful.
And I can say all of the news, like you're talking about news,
Yes.
all of the news that happens via council happens at these meetings. Have you considered sending a journalist to these meetings?
Yes. I was staying after my own presentation to report on.
Well, that'd
on
be
it.
a great idea. Yeah.
We also have a journalist named Wendy who tunes in online as well. Yeah. Okay. But that's a great question. I appreciate that.
Councilor Whalen.
Question for the CAO. I know a while back we were getting updates on having our subcommittees, the minutes of those meetings updated online. Have we seen an improvement there as well?
In terms of our committee.
Our committees,
minutes?
I
I'm
know.
not too sure, Amanda, if we've had any committee meetings since then to post. Because they require to be approved by the committees and then
post it after
Yeah,
approved.
yeah.
And we're in kind of in our summer break
Yeah.
there. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Appreciate the feedback and the information. We'll take a look at the modals policy and look at updating and incorporating some of that stuff.
And it doesn't necessarily need to be that. I just think having the policy is going to help that young lady at the back of the room there do a fantastic job for everybody in the town. And I appreciate the work that she does, and I want to thank her for it.
Thank you. Do we have any other folks looking to speak to any other issues or items either on the council agenda or any other matters? Like this is the time. So we don't, as we go through each item, as that topic comes up, it's not, there's no public input topic by topic. So I just want to make sure. So I'm looking at you because you're the other person here. So if you want to speak, now's the time. If not, we'll continue on with our meeting.
I think I've made my position clear, so I'm just here to see what the outcome is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We do have the minutes of June 22nd, regular council meeting and the public hearing. Any errors or omissions with those? Hearing none, motion to approve the minutes. Councillor Newell, seconded by Councillor Fragier. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We are down to business arising and unfinished business, and we have the housing action plan update.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to share with you an update on the Housing Accelerator Fund and Associated Housing Action Plan, which was approved by Council in September of 2024, and then came under the Housing Accelerator Fund agreement with CMHC in December of 2024. This report provides information to advise Council that all of the initiatives in the Housing Action Plan have now been completed in accordance with the approved work plan and funding agreement that we did have in place with CMHC. So just as a little kind of summary of the actions that have happened under the action plan, there were 5 initiatives that were to be implemented over 3 years, beginning in January of 2025 and to be completed no later than December of 2027. Over that time, the intention was for the town to develop affordable housing incentives, which we have done through the Affordable Housing Pre-Construction Grant, to make municipally owned land available for housing, through which we did have an EOI process, and we do have a town-owned land for housing strategy in place at this time. The creation of pre-approved accessory dwelling units and building plans, and we have fast-tracked the CMHC ADU designs, and as well created a public-facing guide for any folks who are interested in placing an ADU on their property. Removal of R1 zoning in priority areas, which was a process that began at the beginning of this year, I believe, was our first kind of part of that process, and will continue. But as far as CMHC is concerned, and our agreement there, all of those terms have been met. And then to improve development processes through e-permitting and regional services, and e-permitting is now being launched and being used, which is great. So funding through this program is tied to the completion of initiative milestones and achieving a housing unit target over the program period. And all funding must be spent prior to the 4th anniversary of the funding agreement, which became effective in December of 2024. So full half funding will be achieved once the required housing unit targets are met. Under this agreement, the town has agreed to facilitate the permitting of 367 new housing units by the end of December of 2027. As of June of this year, we've permitted 214 units, 10 of which have been considered affordable housing. Under the agreement, we can receive additional funding for the permitting of up to 18 affordable housing units. So we're about halfway through our funding agreement. It's great our initiatives have been completed, and we're looking to permit about an additional 153 units in order to meet the full funding agreement from CMHC.
Questions? Councillor Newell.
Sarah, I'm just curious on if you have any, what do you expect the e-permitting service to, how much do you think that's going to speed up our experience of issuing permits?
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, certainly on the permitting side and, with our development officer and inspections, it's really about streamlining that process of them being able to coordinate that permitting process for building inspectors to very quickly to be able to complete their inspections and those types of things while they're on site, and kind of reducing that additional time or work that might have to happen after an inspection takes place. It's also certainly providing opportunities to create efficiency internally as far as across the team, being able to track and move those permitting processes forward. And then it is providing an opportunity for the public to now be able to submit those applications online through the e-permitting portal. To make their payments. I'm not sure if we've quite launched the payment side of things yet, but eventually we will be there as well, where instead of having to come into the office or call in a credit card or something like that, they're able to just do that permitting through the online portal as well. So it's certainly modernizing that process for folks.
So we don't necessarily see it speeding up how quickly we issue permits, but it speeds up kind of the paperwork side of things, right? It creates internal efficiencies.
Yeah, which does speed up that process as well, because we can create that internal efficiency. Yeah.
Other questions from Councillor Caldwell?
So we need another 8 affordable housing units to receive full funding, correct?
That's
So are there 8 prospective units somewhere in the queue that we would?
Not that
Eventually
I am
come
currently
in.
aware of, to be quite honest. That doesn't mean they won't materialize. I know there are still, DA processes that we're expecting between now and then. But there's nothing that I could say for certain that we would be anticipating to make those 8 units up at this time.
Other questions for Sarah? Okay. Great. Thank you. 10.2, we have disposal of Bridgewise equipment. Our deputy CIO is making his way down.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we're looking for a recommendation to dispose of some technology and equipment from the Energized Bridgewater project in a donation form to the Nova Scotia Community College. We have a policy 72 that sets out that the value below $5,000 can be authorized by the CEO if the donation received is by an organization that's a not-for-profit as a registered charity. In this case, it's Crown Corporation. It's one of our partners, Nova Scotia Community College, but it's outside of our policy, which is why we're here asking for that permission tonight. The estimated value the value of the material that we bought was about $10,400 over the last 3 years. We don't have an accurate estimate for the value now, but given typical rate of depreciation for IT equipment, and these were specialized sensors for most of them, other than the gateways that provide a wide area network. We estimate that we've given it a $2,000 value, but it's probably below that. But we know that Nova Scotia Community College can use this and continue to do research in this area. So that is the recommendation that we're bringing forward tonight.
Questions for the deputy CIO? Really hard questions, complex in nature.
I get all the tough ones.
Councillor Newell.
Would you like a motion?
Sure.
Just seeing the
I don't need to look like I'm disappointed, but yes.
Yeah, sorry. I move that town council for the town of Bridgewater approve the donation of the Bridgewise technology and EMIS equipment to the Nova Scotia Community College.
Wonderful. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Wynot. Further discussion. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And down to 10.3, Parks Improvement Plan. I never understood why we don't like. We just make Sarah sit down.
I can just stand here. Yeah.
We do it on purpose. We're like, Sarah's getting her steps in
She
whether she
needs
wants
that,
it or not.
All right. Another report for information for you this evening regarding the Parks Improvement Plan, or PIP, which was endorsed by Council in April of 2026. And at that time, staff did commit to bringing a quarterly update on progress on the Parks Improvement Plan. So this would constitute your update for Q1 of this fiscal year. The 2026-27 PIP includes 15 initiatives across town parks and open spaces. And during the first quarter, I'm happy to say that staff have advanced several of the projects identified within the Parks Improvement Plan. There are a couple of initiatives that have not yet started. You will see in the update. A few of these are dependent on staffing resources, some of which we are anticipating in the near future, and others we'll kind of have to wait and see how that goes. I have provided a table for you with a few notes and progress on each of the initiatives, but maybe I'll just highlight a couple for you here. Progress has been made on Generations Active Park with a consultant being hired and that project design progressing. The Glen Allen Park Storybook Trail improvements, you will have noted that we are seeing more storybooks kind of being turned over and promoted on the trail, which is great to see. Glen Allen Playground, some of that initiative have moved forward. So there was some work done early, kind of in the spring, summer, to have the slide replaced and some repairs done there. I understand the King Street Court roof replacement is underway or
Yep.
imminent.
It's underway.
Michelin Nature Discovery Park, we have had discussions at the PRAT, and they're going to be ready to move forward some recommendations to council on next steps there in the near future. Winburn Avenue Park, that development is underway, and we should have a bigger update in our Q2 progress. And then Woodland Gardens, the play boxes are prepared for installation, and those should be going out shortly. So we're quite happy with kind of the progress that's been made so far.
This is a good time to mention for the public who are watching that the survey is open for Generations Active Park. So you can get that from the town's website and from Facebook page. We had the open house that was well attended
Last week.
And so the survey, we do really hope that lots of people will participate in that to gather that information as we move ahead with our planned fully accessible playground and splash pad. Deputy Mayor.
Curiosity, the old Town Hills Park, which is not in the ownership of the town at this point, but there has been an accessibility review. Is there a formal process if a developer is creating a space that will be turned over to the town? Is there a formal process for an accessibility review, and what is required? What boxes need to be checked?
That is a good question, because the accessibility requirements are a new requirement for us under provincial legislation. So I think we're still working on exactly how those are implemented. It is something that I anticipate would come from staff as we're reviewing what that park plan would be. We now know that we need to have that accessibility lens and that we need to meet those accessibility requirements. So we would be assessing it against those requirements before moving forward, kind of like accepting that park plan. Yeah.
So looking at Generations Active Park, where we anticipate there to be an accessible playground, is that being used to develop a kind of a checklist and kind of start those steps, or is it working the other way around where we want to have that in place before we start making plans and then potentially go back and say, oops, should have done?
my understanding is the intention around Generations Active Park is for it to be a fully accessible playground. So as it's being designed, that is being done so in alignment with those standards that we are required to be met. So those requirements are kind of already in place, and so those are informing the design process now as we're moving through it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Other questions from council on that? No, that's great. Good. Thank you. Down to North and Aberdeen Road intersection traffic study update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Last time I was before you, we were seeking direction to get updated traffic count data. We had some projects here in town that we wanted to make sure weren't changing our current knowledge and understanding of this potential future project. So we gathered that data in March 2026, provided it to WSP. They've come back. It really only marginally changed that information. The intersection continues to operate at acceptable levels. The AM peak being a level of service B. The ratings are in the documents provided. And the afternoon peak being a level of service C. The primary issue continues to remain the eastbound left turn lane coming up Aberdeen onto North. And that queuing length, where queues continue to exceed the available lane length, periodically impacting the through and right turning traffic, again, coming up that hill. In looking at long-term solutions, WSP evaluated several options. Again, the data hasn't really changed, so they're continuing to suggest the roundabout provides the best performance, reduced delays, and improved operation with future traffic growth. The purpose of today's report is to seek council's direction on the next step now, and with the analysis council previously requested being completed, confirms the original recommendation that WSP provided us, which is for the design of the future roundabout. So recognizing that this actually isn't now as necessary as we thought it was back in 2020, 2021, and the roundabout may not be for several years, WSP's also recommended interim improvements, such as extending the eastbound turn lane again, accessibility improvements, upgrading the aging traffic signal infrastructure, and then we also know that water and wastewater infrastructure needs to be upgraded as well. So the options I've brought to you before tonight, there's three. The first one being the staff recommended option, kind of short-term and long-term, would be to proceed with the detailed design of a future roundabout, including preparation of the Class A cost estimate at a cost of $28,100 plus HST, and plan for a future deliberation for a 2027-28 project to complete those interim items. Again, the traffic signal and accessibility improvements, property acquisition, water and wastewater infrastructure. Option 2 would be defer the future roundabout planning and just jump into the interim project. Again, the items I just previously noted. And option 3 would be continue to monitor the situation and only look at making the water and wastewater improvements below ground.
Questions for the engineer, Councillor Newell?
Sorry, when you first said from the engineer, and I'm like, I'm not an engineer, but forgive me. Now I understand that was for the engineer. I apologize. Very excited about this proposed project. I've heard a lot of very excited neighbors who love the idea. My question is regards to the $100,000 for proposed or recommended interim work. And I guess my question is, one, how long would that work be in there for? Like, how long do you think we would be able to implement before the roundabout happened? And then how long do we think would those improvements be removed once the roundabout gets built? Like, are they more temporary than they are permanent?
Well, it would be the short-term measures that actually abate some of the long-term needs. So yeah, some of it would be property acquisition to lengthen the left turn, the eastbound turn lane there coming up Aberdeen. But that would also then be able to be used in terms of lanes coming up to the roundabout. So it would be planning for the long-term solution and working out how the interim can actually help, some cost savings in the future when that long-term solution is implemented.
I certainly noticed a change since we did the work on LaHave. It has definitely alleviated a lot of the congestion at that intersection, which is, what we had hoped for and what we had heard would happen. So I do like that it's kind of bought us some time. But I do like eventually we're going to need something there, roundabout or something. I certainly like the recommended idea of moving forward, but looking for some direction from council. Councillor Newell.
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater direct staff to proceed with the detailed design of a future roundabout at Aberdeen Road and North Street intersection, including preparation of a Class A cost estimate, and to bring forward a proposed 2027-2028 capital project for council's consideration that includes interim traffic signal, and accessibility improvements, property acquisition requirements, together with required water and wastewater infrastructure upgrades.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Wynot. Further discussion or questions? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Down to 10.5, which is Lunenburg County Wheels request for exemption from taxi fares.
Okay. So this report is a follow-up from direction that was given to staff by council at their April 27th, 2026 meeting. And this was a response to a presentation that council received from Lunenburg County Wheels earlier in the year, as well as on April 13th, 2026. So Lunenburg County Wheels had asked for council to consider amending the taxi bylaw to exempt Lunenburg County Wheels from the taxi fares. They advised council that with the clawback and some provincial or federal funding that they had received, that they were looking for additional ways to generate revenue so they could maintain their service. And one of the things they were looking at was to move to provide shuttle and charter service. I don't understand all the ins and outs of the Motor Carrier Act, but this does require that for those vehicles that they would want to put into that service of shuttle and charter, they would lose their licensing under the Motor Carrier Act and become commercial licensed vehicles. The town's taxi bylaw exempts vehicles that are licensed under the Motor Carrier Act from the taxi bylaw. So right now, Lunenburg County Wheels provides a service in town. It's a pre-booked, 24-hour pre-booked service to residents within the town of Bridgewater, and that's not proposed to change. Presently, because they're licensed under the Motor Carrier Act, they are not required to be licensed under our taxi bylaw. Any vehicle that's required to be licensed under our taxi bylaw because they're charging a fare are required to charge the fares that our taxi bylaw sets out. Hence the request for an exemption. So before council wanted to consider the request, council directed that staff engage the taxi operators to determine whether or not there was support for establishing the fare for shuttle charter or exempting them from the taxi bylaw. So the staff did have that meeting with the taxi operators on June 4th, 2026. And Lunenburg County Wheels was also, two representatives were in attendance at that meeting as well to answer any questions that they may have. All of the taxi operators were represented at the meeting. So there was good representation there as well. It was clear from the meeting that staff had with the taxi operators that there's not support from the taxi operators for the request. It was explained that the difference between Lunenburg County Wheels service that they provide as a nonprofit organization and the taxi operators is that Lunenburg County Wheels would remain a pre-booked service. That's the difference between them and a taxi operator. So that wasn't proposed to change. It was just the charter and shuttle business that they wanted to get into. Taxi operators had concern about that as well, because some of them do provide that service as well. And there was some concern that an organization that receives government funding to help offset their costs enables them to offer their services at a lower wage than a for-profit business that has to set a wage at a rate to make to pay wages and those types of things. So I summarized the comments for council there, but basically it's unfair competition that would be created. There's no way they could compete with them. They also do pre-booked services. They provide shuttle services as well to weddings, etc., and this will create additional competition there. General concern that operations are increasing, so they can't sustain more competition. They felt that government should provide vouchers for those who can't afford taxi services rather than fund a service to compete with them. So they truly see it as competition. So again, it was emphasized to them that Lunenburg County Wheels is not interested in getting into the on-demand taxi service, that they would remain pre-booked. But the concern was still there that this would create unfair competition. So overall, I think the message was loud and clear to staff. One thing with the Lunenburg County Wheels, in addition to the fact that they are pre-booked, 24 hours pre-booked in advance service, they do offer fully accessible services to residents. So their market is a little different. They have a lower rate. They tend to provide services to marginalized groups or individuals who are unable to afford higher fares that taxis may provide, but also they offer services to those needing accessible transportation. The taxi operators did indicate that they do provide support to their clients, so they can help them get into a taxi. They'll help them with their bags at the groceries, whatever they may have, to take them to their house and that type of thing. But some feedback that we did receive from discussing this with our coordinator is that Lunenburg County Wheels does offer a full accessible option for transportation, so you can remain in your wheelchair. Those types of things that are different than taxis aren't able to do that piece, but they did emphasize that they do provide support, just may not be to the extent that Lunenburg County Wheels does. So council's options after receiving that feedback and kind of looking at having a request to exempt Lunenburg County Wheels from our taxi fare requirement, and also on the other side, the concern from the taxi operators, and this there being Lunenburg County's nonprofit, it creates competition, is council can explore some options. So one option that I did note is that council may wish to look at proposing amendments that would exclude a nonprofit transportation service providing pre-booked services from the licensing requirements of the taxi bylaw. And this would exempt Lunenburg County from charging any of the fees provided they are pre-booked and enable them to continue delivering their services and expand to provide those shuttle and charter. Halifax has a similar type of exemption in their bylaws. So they exempt a community-based transportation service from their licensing requirements. If council wanted to explore that option, direction would be required so that we could do some further research into what that would look like in terms of the amendments and that type of thing. Council can also look at creating some fares that would go around charter and shuttle, and look at exempting a nonprofit transportation service providing pre-booked services from the regular fares, but not the charter and shuttle. So you can look at that. Again, further research would be required into what that would look like, or you can just keep your bylaw the way it exists now. And that would require that for Lunenburg County Wheels, for those vehicles that are required to change their license to commercial to provide charter and shuttle services, they would be required to charge the fees under the town's taxi bylaw.
Questions from Councilor Newell?
Why do we regulate the rate that taxis can charge?
That's a great question. I suspect it's to ensure that it's I guess equitable, and guarantee a rate for our residents, so that it's predictable for those who may be using the service that these are the set rates. So someone doesn't get in a cab and then find out it's $30 when really, and someone else might have charged 10. So it's to regulate that. That's the fair piece, right? To make it equitable. We do require that all of the operators agree to the rate.
Okay.
The taxi bylaw itself and the licensing piece of it is about providing to our residents and the public, visitors who come in, assurances about the vehicles and the drivers and that type of service. So we do criminal records checks and all those things to make sure that it's a safe service for those who may wish to use it.
Deputy Mayor.
I had really been wondering the same thing. I think it's really, really important to do the inspections of the vehicles, make sure that we have a criminal records check. So there's some assurances provided to riders. But setting their rates, we don't do that for any other type of business in town. And I was trying to figure out why this one in particular, if there was something along the way that required that. And I didn't check, but do other bylaws like HRM, do they set?
All other communities that have taxis would set the rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
difference
I thought
here
I
is
had
we
seen
set
others,
it
but-
like it's $10 a ride
Right.
Yeah.
versus HRM would be, they would set the minimum, like the starting fee of whatever, $2.50 and then per minute or kilometer.
Right.
So in smaller communities, we tend to, and I think a number of the other smaller communities
It's a
set it
rate.
as a flat rate
Yeah.
because $1 a kilometer is only going to end up charging $1. So it is standard practice to charge right? Because I had the same question. And we do, they do agree to the rate as well. So,
Yeah. And it's to ensure that predictability to the user,
yeah.
that you're not, that, you know, it's a set rate and you're not going to find yourself in a position where it's an unfair rate.
Councillor No.
How often does that rate get revised?
Oh,
It's usually instigated by.
Oh, usually
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
like the drivers will be like, "Hey, we don't think this is okay."
I think it was a
anymore."
couple years ago that we changed it. Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. When,
Okay.
when fuel went up, they've come and said, listen, we need a change in price or insurance costs went up.
But
Yeah.
there is an established process where they
There
can be
is.
like, "Hey, we would like to change it." Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not the town dictating the price. It
No,
comes to the, yeah.
All great, learning
Yeah.
lots. Reminding when I first joined council, you're like, ask all the questions. So I'm
bet.
asking all the questions. Do you recall roughly how many of the drivers said that they provide either advanced or pre-booked or shuttle services?
I don't recall the shuttle service piece, but all of them will do pre-book.
Do a pre-book service, yeah.
So just a couple of things so I'm clear. So this change is being requested because there was a change in model at Lunenburg County Wheels.
They're
So
looking
the
to
impetus for the
change
change is from them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change their door-to-door service. That's staying exactly the same, pre-booked.
Pre-booked,
So,
24 hours in advance.
right. So if they never made this request, we would never be having this conversation.
That's correct.
Because it's already the same model. Okay. Yeah. My concerns are, I don't want to see a government funded entity eroding private business. That's not what it should be there for, right? So I look at the picture on the screen is a great example. I don't think we have any private taxis that offer a fully accessible van like this where they can go in, stay in their wheelchair and go. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have that. So I'm very comfortable with, is there a way, or do other communities do this where the exemption is provided that I'm just looking at the one that we have here with Halifax says, which exempts a community-based transportation service. Could it say exempts a community-based fully accessible transportation service or something that differentiates the two to create that?
Yeah, you can, and again, we'd have to do a little bit of further research on that option, but if your desire was to, in addition to being pre-booked, nonprofit, community-based, that they are providing service through a fully accessible vehicle, then we can, look at adding that to it too, so that it's kind of targeting the picture you see, that type of vehicle, as opposed to a sedan providing services, which would be, the taxi drivers could very well have an argument that that's providing competition because it's the same type of vehicle providing a similar service.
Like I know a number of the taxi drivers that I had communication with, their biggest concern was a lot of their revenue is airport shuttles. going back and forth to the airport. And I didn't hear anything from Lunenburg County Wheels that they were going to be doing airport shuttle service. So that would be, that's a question I would need to have answered, because again, then you're starting to take government taxpayer money to fund the competition of private industry. And it kind of goes against the mandate, which is to, if you're helping people who can't afford to pay the bill, like the full price of the taxi fare, but you're getting them to the airport for a vacation in Cancun. I don't think those things work out, but I don't think that's where Lunenburg County Wheels was going anyway. I know they talked about a beach shuttle and things like that. And I know we've all heard from residents that would say, I have no way of getting to the beach. So we see the value there. But to me, there's some of the services that's not changing at all. And then some of it where it's changing a little bit, but it's the accessibility component to me that is the differentiator between the taxis and the Lunenburg County Wheels. So I don't know how we explore that.
But I mean, if that's what council wants to explore, then we can certainly bring that back, flesh it out a bit in terms of what that amendment could look like. Do that check in with legal counsel and make sure it's on the up and up in terms of being able to be done. But it's really just adding that type of vehicle to it. So I think that we probably could. We just have to do that confirmation and bring that back.
Yeah. I don't know what other folks around the table are thinking. I don't want to.
I really like that, because I really, really don't want to impose on small business owners who are out there working hard in what must be a very difficult industry right now with the price of insurance and gas and so on. I don't want to make it harder for them. And I don't want to see services start to disappear because they can't afford to operate, or the competition has put them out of business. At the same time, if we can find a way of filling gaps that they're not able to provide for, and Lunenburg County Wheels is great. And if it's not something that they're actively pursuing to look for, the taxi companies aren't looking to secure vehicles that are fully accessible, then that's a gap that needs to be filled, and Lunenburg County Wheels is the perfect vehicle to fulfill that need. Yeah, if we can clarify to that level of detail, that's great, and fill a gap without taking business away from people who are working really hard for their business right now.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
I'm just with the deputy mayor that, when I was reading the package, just going over and over again, I don't want to solve one problem by creating another. And I feel like there's a fine line there. So I'm in favor of getting some more information there.
Mr. Caldwell.
Do we know if whether or not Lunenburg County Wheels and the taxi drivers, do we know how they would feel about option 2, which is essentially status quo with Lunenburg County Wheels could provide charter and shuttle service at market prices?
They weren't supportive of that.
Neither side?
They felt that, Lunenburg, that's what Lunenburg County Wheels wanted to be exempt from our taxi fares, our regular day-to-day, door-to-door fares. But the taxi operators weren't in favor of that either. So they just felt it was opening the door to them.
Councillor Newell.
Yeah. I do see a challenge of there tries to be the definition of this is a pre-booked service, therefore it does not compete with taxi service. I don't think that. I think that's disingenuous because it does through all taxi services offer pre-booked. What I do appreciate from the mayor is how I did see my limited time on social media. I did see some folks saying, accessibility is a problem. I personally, if we went down that route of trying to figure out how that accessibility component fits, I feel like that has to be by the vehicle, not by service, because otherwise, how do you get 10 non-accessible vehicles supporting one accessible? And I think then you create an unbalanced competition. The other thing I think needs to be time limited, or a permitting system that is annual or some sort of application. But I mean, if there was this carve out, right? Because if you get an exemption from the bylaw, right now there's promises of not going against of only providing certain services, but one board change, and we've seen that happen before. Organizations change, they say, well, I'm already exempt. So as long as there's a process where they reapply for that exemption and whether it's council or staff or whatever that process is, I think needs to be in place.
I see what you're saying. So it's-
We'd have to look at how that would work in a bylaw, because the bylaw sets out the criteria, and as long as they meet it, they'd be exempt. So if we were clear in our criteria that if any of those things change,
then they're no longer
they're no longer
exempt.
exempt, because if they apply annually, it implies that something's changing. That, that council can say yes or no, when in fact, as long as it meets the bylaw, they can. But we can do a review to make sure that they maintain those pieces to be eligible for
Because
exemption.
that's my concern is
Yeah.
if they meet criteria, but then they decide, well, we're offering a service, and unless it's explicitly written in the bylaw, I think we could get very unhappy.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Be clear on that, Deputy Mayor.
I just kind of want to hash out one other thing. This does not, anyone who might be using Lunenburg County Wheels for regular transportation to and from work, this would not change how they access that because it would be a pre-booked service then, right?
Pre-book, as
Right?
long as it were provided, if this amendment that we're discussing were to go through, as long as it were pre-booked, provided by Lunenburg County Wheels or a nonprofit, and it was provided through a fully accessible vehicle. So if they show up with the RAV4 or a sedan or whatever, then it would not qualify. It would have to be a fully accessible vehicle. So what you're seeing on the screen, basically.
So that's where we have to have the conversation with Lunenburg County Wheels,
But
because they have a couple of vehicles like that.
Right, and it's also a bit of a loophole because I could call for a ride to work, pre-book it, and they just have to show up with this vehicle.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's fine,
That can happen
even though I
today.
don't need that vehicle.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, it can happen now, we can't,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily a loophole that we can close. Okay.
Yeah. Councillor Conklin, then Councillor Wynot, and then back over.
I'm leaning towards the third option. I feel that the situation now for ride sharing is fine in the town. Not too long ago, we didn't really have the ability to get a taxi ride after like 7 PM or 9 PM on a weekend. Now we have a number of different taxi companies. They're getting squeezed, price of gas, just repairs, everything like that. We did have one fare increase since I started on council. I guess that would have been, what you alluded to. So personally, I feel that, really, it's a government funded service that we'd be thrown in, to basically compete with small businesses. And it's, I just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm fine with just how we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wynot.
Just a clarification point, pre-booked is a minimum of 24 hours out. Is that
Yeah.
what we've determined
Yeah.
or is what?
That's what the present
The
service is.
present,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Other questions or? I feel like what we're looking for is a little bit more information on perhaps
That option?
on the option. I know Councillor Conklin is kind of status quo right now, but I'm sensing around the table there's a desire to look at at least, so this will come back and we can then make the decision. But some additional information on what that would look like if the word accessibility is required. I think council would like to know the impact on Lunenburg County Wheels and maybe the impact on the taxi
So,
companies.
so we can have, would you like further consultation with the stakeholders then?
I think after
that
we,
option, or
yeah,
do you
I think
see
after
first?
we dig into what that means to add the word community-based, fully accessible.
Yeah,
And then once we have that information,
bring it back to council and
Yeah.
then you'll decide if you want to go out and do consultation. Okay.
does that, I think, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so staff is looking for some direction on that. Councillor Frazier.
I just had a question, if staff knew if there are other municipalities where, this, similar, makeup is done, so you have your nonprofit transportation services. and then-
Well, I know Halifax has that exemption now, so they have those types of services they have a taxi bylaw, licensing their taxis, charging their fares, but they also have these community-based transportation services. Other than that, I haven't done any research into towns
Outside the-
that have
the larger
taxis.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just a general
Yeah.
question.
Councillor Newell.
Lunenburg County Wheels, they don't have any requirements of who could be passengers, right? It's not a accessibility matter or an age matter, right? It's anyone can call and pre-book. Do we know if that's true in other regions as well? Like, I'm just curious if in Halifax is there's like, well, the nonprofit service actually only services a certain clientele.
I couldn't comment on that. I haven't done that level of research
Yeah.
into this. Yeah.
We didn't, staff didn't go
I know, I'm just
diving
while
in
we're
until
having the
council
discussion,
had
I'm
given,
just curious.
yeah.
No,
No, it's a good question. I'd be curious to know, like Chad Transit and like up in Stellarton and things like that, if how they do that. Which is what we'll find out if there's I think council's goal is to have them coexist in a way that one is not, starting to erode the viability of the other. So, so you're looking for a motion from council to direct staff to
Investigate the pre-book.
to investigate the pre-book, fully accessible, community-based option. Okay, do I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Wynot. Further discussion, so this will come back to council as we kind of flesh this out a bit. Further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And we are down to 10.6. We have a letter from Jerry Jodry, Health Hazards of Radon, and I believe this came before council.
Well, you and I were.
In June.
Yeah, so I believe you chaired the meeting. This came before council, and I believe staff did provide an update and some information.
Yeah, so there has been a bit of correspondence with Mr. Jodry about radon, and he certainly has some concerns about the public's awareness and what options may be available to help mitigate lack of awareness and also radon levels in homes and particular rental properties. So we had provided him with some information about how you can get radon testing kits at MLA's office, at the library. Suggested that, in terms of where the town's jurisdiction is, the only bylaw that could possibly maybe apply is the minimum standards bylaw, because we do talk about air quality like mold and those types of things in homes. So we could look at it under that, but again, we'd need direction to do that. And then he had taken that information and then come back with a letter that basically said, I'd like council to consider some stuff. So his concern is we really haven't spoken to it to determine if there's anything that council has an interest in. So he was essentially asking that we have a public awareness campaign. I believe we did provide some stuff on social media. We can do that, no problem. Information post to our residents to make them aware where you can get these kits. He is asking that we look at our minimum standards bylaw and investigate putting that type of criteria in there. That would require that a landlord, meet their acceptable radon levels within their buildings. To lobby the governments, I just lost my Zoom on that. To look at laws that require radon testing for rental units. Like consult with the Lung Association. Again, after a public awareness campaign, we look at purchasing some units for loan by Bridgewater residents and have the Lung Association units available at Town Hall. And then check with radon remediation companies regarding what they can provide and what cost to town residents would be and make that available. So about creating awareness, facilitating access to kits, and looking at amending our bylaws. So he's asking council to consider that. At the June meeting, council received the correspondence and no action was taken on that. So it's just here for confirmation as to whether or not you wish to, or just receive the correspondence and indicate that the existing avenues for the public to access these kits and information is sufficient in council's mind.
Any questions or Deputy Mayor?
The kits that are available at the MLA's office in the library, they're different than, they're not like a long-term testing kit. There's two different types of kits, right? Does anyone know the difference between the kits? Because then it seems like he's asking us to have the testers available that are kind of long-term testing. And then there are like short-term, like immediate tester kits, but I don't really understand. We don't have any information on those, but I could call the MLA's
not
office and ask.
offhand, no.
Maybe Councillor Newell has the information.
Someone will correct me. I do believe, to your point, so the ones you get from the MLA's office and I believe the library, I do believe those are short-term tester kits that you then send off to a lab and a lab examines them.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the long-term ones. I do know, like, for example, I bought for my home to test it. You can buy like basically smart devices that will sit and kind of like, if you think of like Energized Bridgewater where they had like the CO2 sensors like that, but for radon, where you sit at basement or some low level, usually next to a drain, and it will give you a radon detection. And what's nice is it will log that and will keep a long-term report, where the short-term testers that you borrow, those are like a one-time test.
In that moment.
In that moment, or you can get devices about $100. So I can't speak to whether or not the request is necessary for the long-term devices. That probably actually doesn't work in this situation. But in my correspondence with Jerry, I particularly bring it to like adding it to our minimum standards bylaw, at least investigating what that would look like. I personally don't see the harm in at least us seeing if that's something that can be added. I think in terms of the test personally, we probably need to see what the availability is like through other sources, because they are available through 2 really great resources. But hopefully that answers your question.
It does, because my concern was somebody who's living in an apartment and a landlord isn't testing. Is that the long-term testing better, and is it accessible? Would it be valuable to have a couple of units available somewhere for people to borrow for, a period of 3 months? I don't know how long you have to test. But if it's being sent off to a lab, it sounds like you're going to get some sort of result that you can present to a landlord or whoever may pursue that. So maybe it's not quite as valuable as I thought.
Councillor Wynot.
This question's probably for Councillor Newell, but
I am not the council radon. I have a microphone.
The remediation companies that would deal with this, if you have to have that unit set up, would their testing be free? Like if I were concerned about my house, would they come set that up for free? Do you know, or is there a cost to that?
So I can't speak to the companies, but like the ones, like the tester kits you can get from the MLA's office of library, like those are free, and you get those and send them away for testing. I'm not sure about what services are. I don't know how many people get services to come out to their home. I do know like homes will, I think after 2021 already have like a radon pipe or like device installed in their home. I'm not sure in what situations you have like a company.
I just know you did some deep research. That's why I'm asking.
I know. I'm trying to now have to like try to pull it out of my brain. But like I personally bought just a device to test radon on my home. Now I have a home that was built in 2023. So right. Mine had a radon pipe. In fact, when I went looking for it, it's literally written on it radon. And I'm like, oh, that's what you mean.
The CAO was just saying that the Lung Association does have some long-term kits for a reduced price.
Okay, great.
So there are kits, short-term and long-term kits available. And I certainly don't see any harm in promoting where these kits are. I think that's important for sure, Deputy Mayor.
If and we may not be able to answer this before investigating it, but if it was part of a minimum standards, how would we follow up on something like that? So if an apartment building was built as part of the minimum standards, it would have to have a radon pipe, and then would we ever go back and check?
Yep. So, minimum standards would be usually right now, of course, you're reviewing your bylaws and how we enforce them, but they're often complaint driven. And that would involve having the resources required to go in to do that inspection. We'd have to determine whether or not we require the landlord to present us with a report of testing results, or if we would go in and do the one-time test result, which would then might lead to something more permanent. But it would become an enforcement requirement for the town to do.
And if I may, and that would be from that point forward, buildings prior to that being put in place.
It would still be the same. We'd have to look at that, but
All right.
minimum standards applies to all buildings, right? So whether you're built in 1970 or 2010.
Okay. Yeah.
So what Councillor Newell was talking about was new homes built after
I think it's 2021.
2021.
Someone will fact check me.
They already have that.
Right.
So the minimum standards makes it so there's no grandfathering in,
Gotcha.
right? So
Yeah.
it's the way to get through that hurdle.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Do you want to maybe explain in terms of adding it to the minimum standards? Can you maybe, because that'll be the question, next question from council. It's not as easy as just saying add this to minimum
No,
standards.
there's some-
Staff time, capacity and costs too.
Yes, it would, you definitely have to determine how much of a priority it is, because council already has their list of priorities. I would suggest that this would involve some research, some legal work to determine whether or not the authorities their jurisdiction to put it in the bylaw. We'd have to examine your enforcement mechanisms and report to you on that, because if you're gonna have it in a bylaw, you should enforce it. So it would be, so there'd be resources to do that. I would suggest this would probably be a 2027 initiative, that we would be able to bring back some research and a report on that. And if you want to pursue that, and then the bylaw amendment would follow from that research.
Did you hear that?
I did, but
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
No, I insist. I lost my question. To me, there may be two parts to this, though. If are we enforcing having properties tested, or are we enforcing that if their levels are too high, having it remediated?
So that's part of that. Like it's almost, we can't give you the solution until we kind of research those options.
Okay.
Initially, I think it's about requiring the building owner to present us with testing. But again, we have to kind of do that research to see how can we do it? Have other places done it? How have they done it? What are the lessons learned there?
Mm-hmm.
And we may be charting new territory. I don't know.
If I could give my thoughts, and the deputy mayor's comments kind of brought this to light. So there's short-term kits available in multiple places. So kind of check that. We can do awareness campaign of that. So check that. But access to the longer-term kits, if the town were to purchase a couple of those and loan those out, so we eliminate the barrier of someone who's in a situation where they might not be able to afford the kit. If we were to loan that out, with the provision that the data would not just be shared with, like we would get some of the data so that we could start understanding what the issue is out there as well. Because that's the other piece we don't know, right? So kind of like we did with Energized Bridgewater, right? Gathered some data and then realized 40% of people live in energy poverty. So is it that 40% of the properties in the town of Bridgewater have a radon issue, or 2 properties in the town of Bridgewater have a radon issue? It might also be something to raise it, around the table of the region, the mayors and wardens, to say, wouldn't it be kind of nice if people could go to any municipal office in the 5 or 6 municipal units in Lunenburg and Queens and get a long-term kit? And then we could start, again, building that database of in these areas, right? So like Energized Bridgewater, or like the parasitic slate, where we know that there's some pockets of Lunenburg County that has it and some that don't. So I kind of like that as in the short term, because it can't, if they're not that expensive, we could probably buy a few, promote that we have them for people, while we then, as we return to our bylaw discussion, talk about if that's one of the priorities we want to add. Recognizing that, as the CIO said, we already have our strategic priorities set. If what town wants to move, if council wants to move this, we do have to move other things. So does that sound like a short-term solution? Councillor Colwell?
I'd say that's fine, but I think the real issue is there is a problem with radon. That's, I think, well recognized in this area. And people can get kits for testing, right, for free. So, but to me, the real issue is that if you're a homeowner, you can choose to remediate in your home. The issue is with renters, and they can identify a problem, but they have no way to fix it, right? Yeah. If their landlord doesn't want to fix it, it's not fixed. So I think really the only thing we can really do is change the minimum standard. So, I would just propose that, because we have so much on our plate, it's just we plan to discuss it at our next strategic priorities session and decide where it is on the list. Do we want to pursue this? Because it would take some time, staff time, it would take money, and it'd be a big change certainly for property owners. So a lot of considerations, but I think it should be part of a larger discussion for me.
Great, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Pajot.
I totally agree, but I just wanted to say that I just jumped on the Canadian Lung Association site to see what they're selling the long-term testers for, and they're between $250, $379, $199. There's one for $100. So it would be a significant investment for some families to be able to access those testers. And a lot of landlords may not make a change. But I don't know if you can go to the tenancy board with that kind of information, or if there's some way that you can use it, or at least you're presenting it to your landlord, or as a homeowner, you're aware. There is also funding available through the Lung Association to help with remediation.
Thank you.
I like having a few kits around the community available.
Councillor Pajot.
I personally feel that we're at the education and awareness point to make sure the information is available, where those access points are to pick up the kits, and knowing too the facts that more than 40% of our residents here are renters. I think it shows that it falls back on obviously the landlords or the owner's responsibility to take action. So I feel better if we're able to provide the information and get the information out as far as what people can do. But as Councillor Colwell said, we're kind of strapped for time. What we've got on our strategic priorities here as a council, but I think that's the first step, is just to make sure we're providing the information and keeping people informed of where they can go for the free kits. Yeah.
That's one. The mayor's had success going to Ottawa to drum up some money for us. So maybe we just book him on the next flight and we can get some of these kits. I mean, you've had success. Yeah, you've had success. There's no doubt.
Again, if we speak to the mayors and wardens around Lunenburg Queens, and there's 6 of us asking for for some funding assistance for the longer term test kits, I would think that that's probably a reasonable ask for residents across the region. So
not a lot of money, like in the grand scheme.
Yeah. So I certainly don't mind speaking to the other mayors and making that request, and probably one pot that creates a lot of solutions across the region. Sure. I'll just add that on my list.
That on your list.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Do we need a motion to defer it to strategic planning? Do we need a motion for that, or does it just become something we remember?
I think we should, so we don't lose sight of it. Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I've heard a few things.
So how about a motion to make sure to add this to the strategic priorities list for 27-28, right?
Yeah.
And then that the mayor will raise this with the mayors wardens of Lunenburg Queens at the next mayors and wardens meeting in terms of seeking funding options for the long-term test kits. Does that work? Yeah.
So moved.
Okay. Okay. Seconded by Councillor Wynot. Further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. That was a great conversation. That was good. And meanwhile, it's operational, so staff can just take it to promote on Facebook and to social media channels and things like that, where the resources are. So that doesn't require a motion of council for staff to do that. Down 10.7, second and final reading for amendment chapter 192, property tax exemption.
Okay, so this is the second final reading, which would see amendments to your property tax exemption bylaw, which is it's housekeeping essentially, to remove civic address 48 Elm Street from the list of exempted organizations. That was placed on the list when South Shore Transition House owned and used the property, and they no longer own or use that property, so it's required to be taken out.
I'm looking for a motion from Councillor Wynot.
I move that town council for the town of Bridgewater, pursuant to section 168 of the Municipal Government Act, conduct second and final reading of bylaw 241 a bylaw to amend Chapter 192 Property Tax Exemptions Bylaw as contained in Appendix A of document number 26-088 for amendments to Schedule A of the bylaw, which removes civic address 48 Elm Street from the list of exempted organizations, as South Shore Transition House no longer owns or occupies that location.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Frazier. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. New business, Parks, Recreation, and Active Transportation Terms of Reference Amendment.
Okay. The Parks, Recreation, and Active Transportation Committee, through its staff designate, are seeking Town Council's approval of the committee's revised terms of reference. The Parks, Recreation, Active Transportation Committee, or PRAT, is a standing committee of council. Previously, this was two separate committees that were combined in late 2024. And at that time, council approved the current terms of reference, which govern the committee's mandate, membership, and decision-making process. Specifically seeking a change this evening is to the required quorum of the committee. So Section 9 of the current terms of reference set out the committee's decision-making provisions as followed. Item 9.2 requires that a quorum of the committee shall be 6 members of the committee. So it's a specific number of individuals rather than something proportionate to the actual size of the committee at any given time. So this approach doesn't currently scale with the committee's size, and it is inconsistent with some of our quorum provisions used for other advisory committees of council at this time. So having looked at the Heritage Advisory Committee and the Arts, Culture, and Museums Advisory Committee, their terms of reference and approach to quorum, we're seeking that the proposed Section 9.2 be struck out in its entirety and replaced with the following: that a quorum of the committee shall consist of 6 members for a 9 or 10 member committee, 5 members for a 7 or 8 member committee, and 4 members for a 5 or 6 member committee.
Questions? All comments? Deputy Mayor?
I just want to say that we have not been able to meet quorum on a number of occasions. I think we're required to have 10 members, or we up to 10 members. Having to have 9 to meet quorum means that we are discussing things but not able to put any recommendations forward. One of those members is to be a youth. Youth in our community are extremely busy with school and sports and work and volunteering. So they do their very best to be at the meetings, but they're very busy. So you can almost bank on them not being able to be there for a full meeting or not being able to be there, which means everyone else has to be there every time. So in order for this committee to be able to proceed and do any work, we really need to make a change to that. And Sarah has done an incredible job of really formalizing the work and the plans. There's a lot of work to look forward to, and the committee seems very eager to do it. And this, I think, will help us be able to actually make some meaningful progress. And I think then maybe make the work meaningful to the members. So please.
There's a plea. All right, Councillor Newell.
I move that Town Council of the Town of Bridgewater approve the revised Parks, Recreation, Active Transportation Committee terms of reference as presented in document 26-096. Change of the quorum requirements by replacing a fixed model with a scaled tier membership size by request of the Deputy Mayor, or by plea of the Deputy Mayor.
Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And then Parks, Recreation, and Active Transportation Plan endorsement.
Wonderful. All right. So the Parks, Recreation, and Active Transportation Committee are also seeking council's endorsement of the 2026-2027 fiscal year action plan to help guide the committee's work. As mentioned, this is a standing advisory committee of council, and the mandate of the committee is to promote healthy living and enhance the quality of life for residents of Bridgewater by supporting access to recreational and active living opportunities and by advising the town's efforts to become an active transportation supportive community. So the development of an action plan is a new kind of initiative for the PRAT as of this fiscal year. It does follow precedent of what we have seen other committees of council successfully implement for the past couple of years. So we're kind of following in their steps. But the intention moving forward is for the committee to continue to update and revise their action plan at the beginning of each fiscal year, and then have that come back to council for their review and endorsement. And it's also an opportunity for the committee to kind of report throughout the fiscal year where they're making progress on that action plan, and for council to have a little bit more of awareness of what's going on around that table. The action plan does establish priority areas where the committee will provide advice and input to council and staff over the fiscal year, and where they may take their own initiative to move items forward as well. So broadly, the action plan is organized around 4 key goals. The first being parks and active transportation infrastructure, the second being parks programming and community partnerships, the third being active transportation, and the fourth being community access, engagement, and stewardship. Priority actions include input on the parks improvement plan, active transportation initiatives, Pro-Kids fundraising, and park site visits. Ongoing committee activities include providing input on planning matters that may arise, partnerships, the volunteer recognition each year is a big event that committee supports as well, and community engagement where appropriate and necessary. So as I mentioned, the committee is at this time seeking endorsement from council for this year's fiscal Parks, Recreation, and Active Transportation Committee Action Plan.
Questions? Otherwise, I am looking for direction from council. Councilor Caldwell.
I move the town council for the town of Bridgewater endorse the 2026-2027 fiscal year action plan for the Parks, Recreation, and Active Transportation Committee as presented in document 26-097. 26-097.
Seconded by Councilor Wynot. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. And we are down to Q1 CAO strategic priorities update and department Q1 reports.
Okay, so council has in your agenda package the update on priorities and departmental reports. So I will highlight for council the strategic priorities. And if you have any questions with respect to that, happy to answer them. Any questions with respect to the quarterly reports, we'll answer them with the staff that are in the room, or I get you the answer. So in terms of strategic priorities, I did revise the report a little, looking for some feedback on that as well, trying to make it a little easier to see at a glance as opposed to having to read pages of stuff. So green means that we're on track with the action, and we provide you with the milestones and the target quarter, and then the achievements that we did in Q1. So asset management on track. And we reassigned asset management to engineering during Q1, and the recruitment is underway for the asset management position. But I think, I don't know if it's closed yet or not, but if it hasn't, it's near closing. EDI implementation, so that one is not quite on track, so that's at risk. So that's what yellow means. That means that we're behind a little bit in a few things there. So mainly, we had targeted to bring forward some personnel policy changes on holidays to look at some enabling the non-statutory holidays to be switched out for other cultural holidays. So that's a little bit behind. But during this quarter, the training that council staff and committee members are asked to take is ongoing. The housing action plan, you received your report tonight. That's on track. So, all good there. Recreation and museum integration is on track. So during the last quarter, council had their visioning session at the Des Brisets, and the engagement strategy has been developed. So staff are underway with implementing that. Marketing levy and tourism events, that one we have is yellow, which means at risk, and primarily because the tourism events officer was targeted to be recruited by the end of the first quarter. And there have been, we did do a recruitment exercise that has been put on hold because we've gone full speed into events for the summer. So we will hopefully have that filled before the end of the summer, but it's delayed a bit. Energized Bridgewater is on track, so that's the transition of the wind down of the program and looking at the navigator position. So we gave a PACE program update and an evaluation report. Development charges is at risk, and we are behind on quite a few things there. We have engaged a consultant, and we've had a kickoff meeting with the consultant, but there's a lot of data and information that they need to get from us, so that takes a lot of time. So staff are working on that background information report and providing them with some capital information and forecasting. So we're still on track overall, but at this point, we're just highlighting that we are behind that could affect the end date. Wastewater capacity strategy, same thing, that we are in the process of doing our wastewater treatment preliminary report, but it hasn't been completed. So we do, based on where we're at in the progress of that, we are concerned that we might not meet our targeted Q3 for having the capacity assessment done, or sorry, Q4 for that. And same with the offsetting program. So we're working towards it, but we're identifying right now that we're behind. Tax rate stability and ops review, the final report has been completed, and that was completed by the end of Q1. We'll be presenting that to council at the next discussion session. Wastewater utilities on track, and that's because we have Q2 for the engagement of the consultant. So nothing was done during the last period, but we anticipate we'll meet that Q2 target. Parks planning is on track. You got your update tonight. Exit 12A, we have that as at risk. We had hoped to have the expression of interest out for phase 1, and that will be out in the next few weeks, but it has been delayed. We had to work out some contamination area issues, those types of things. But during this period, we've had appraisal done, the drafts completed. It's with procurement right now for review of expression of interest, and we finalized access for the laydown area for public works, since we took away the laydown area in the development of exit 12. And regional growth management is, again, one that we highlighted as yellow. The regional transit MOU, we targeted for Q1, that's behind, and the substation MOU is behind. The substation MOU, we've had legal counsel review, and that's back with Modal. And the transit MOU, again, we've given Modal our position on that, so it's with them. The downtown growth plan's on track. Public transit expansion, we have that one as behind. And that's because we had some Q1 targets in order to try to have a launch in beginning of 27, fiscal year 27, 28. We had to work that back. So we had to have the MOU signed, the vehicle purchased, those things kind of underway, and they're not because it's all contingent on the MOU. So that's put everything behind. And then bylaw enforcement, we're on track with that. So we had our workshop with council to discuss that, and you've asked for a little bit more time with that issue. So we're working on getting you that form so you can do your priorities on bylaw enforcement. So that's where we are.
Questions for the CAO, Deputy Mayor?
Those two MOUs, we would probably not expect any response from those until the fall. Is that fair to?
I think they're dealing with the next.
I think, well, I know one of them there in the substation, it's hopes that we'll hear back by August on that.
Okay.
In terms of your format, I do like this format. What I don't like is the word at risk, because you've got on track, behind,
At risk of being behind.
and at risk. Right. But it kind of makes it sound like it's at risk of not being done, but it's at risk of being behind.
Delayed.
Softer word?
Delayed is it better. So yeah, on track, delayed, behind, I think. I just don't want
Sure,
this is my time where I remind the public that all our documents that are in our agenda package are on the town's website under council and agenda, and you can, everything we have is there, and you can click the links. Amanda puts all the links in, so you can click on those and you'll see this document there. And yeah, I would just to clean it up. But this is, I really like this format. It's good. Other questions or comments from council? Hearing none, is someone prepared to make a motion that we receive these? Deputy Mayor?
I would move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater receive the CAO's first quarter strategic priorities update and the departmental court Q1 reports as presented in document number 26-099.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Fagier. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. And we have first consideration of concurrent MPS and LUB amendments for 130 Dominion. The old police station.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here this evening to present the application for a concurrent redesignation and rezoning from the 2-unit residential R2 zone to the medium density residential R5 zone for the property at 130 Dominion Street. It's staff's recommendation that council give first reading to the proposed map amendments and schedule a public hearing for August 10th, 2026. An application was received on April 8th, 2026, with the applicant seeking to construct a 4th dwelling unit on the property in conjunction with the existing 3 dwelling units in the residential building on the subject property. The 4th unit is being proposed as a backyard accessory suite in a detached accessory building. The proposed addition of a 4th dwelling unit on the property requires a concurrent map amendment to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to facilitate a redesignation and rezoning. Oops. The property sits at the corner of Dominion and Hillcrest Streets in an area designated primarily low density on the future land use map. The surrounding area contains an institutional use, being the Bridgewater United Church, and 2 open space properties in the top left corner of that map, being the Bridgewater Curling Club and the Bridgewater Memorial Arena. Further, the property is located within a 7-minute walk from the Gateway Plaza and an 8-minute walk of King Street. Seen here from Dominion Street, the subject property features 2 driveways. The driveway on the left side of the image is a double wide driveway, and the driveway on the right side of the image is a single wide driveway, providing access to the property via Dominion Street. This is a view from Hillcrest Street. As noted, the municipal planning strategy's future land use map includes the property in its low density residential designation. The medium density designation being sought for the property is intended to enable compact and more affordable housing options to meet the diverse needs of citizens in the town of Bridgewater. The designation allows for the maximum of 4 units as of right, with higher densities permitted through a development agreement. Permissions of the medium density residential designation residential zone, include the single, 2-unit, and multi-unit dwellings to a maximum of 4 units, with additional permission for residential conversions to a maximum of 5 units for dwellings established before August 27th, 1975. The municipal planning strategy contains a list of 15 planning objectives that help guide the policies and regulation that comprise our planning documents. Of those 15 objectives, this application directly addresses and supports 3: controlling land use and development to minimize conflicts between land uses, encouraging compact development and to maximize the town's shared infrastructure and to promote close-knit neighborhoods, and enabling a range of housing options to allow people to live out their lives in Bridgewater. The policies found within the MPS are analyzed as part of the planning analysis report. So policy R2, the proposed amendment provides an incremental increase to density for the being on a corner lot in Collector Street, and therefore is unexpected to result in any conflicts between land uses, as noted in policy R2. The application also works to policy R3 by supporting a rear yard accessory suite, providing a wider range of housing options within the town. It also supports policy R10 as the amendment was requested to provide infill development in line with the policy. The additional unit proposed on the property would make more efficient use of municipal infrastructure servicing the site while providing compatible development with the surrounding neighborhood, as the accessory structure would be required to conform to the requirements found within the land use bylaw relating to accessory structures. The application and proposal adhere to general development policies, including the minimum requirements for parking required in all residential zones and standards for accessory structures. The property already contains sufficient parking area for the proposed additional unit and would need to adhere to the regulations as noted in the land use bylaw for accessory structures, most notably being the max height being 21 feet and the max gross floor area being 10% of the subject lot, which is just under 1,200 square feet. Comparing the existing and the proposed zoning, the subject property is currently zoned R2 and allows for a maximum of 2 units as of right. The previous structure comprising 3 units was allowed under the residential conversions allowance in the land use bylaw, which grants additional unit for structures constructed before August 27th, 1975. The proposed R5 zone will allow multi-units to a maximum of 4 units with the permission of a 5th unit through the same residential conversion allowance. The zoning standards for both the R2 and R5 zones retain a 10-meter height maximum, with the front yard setback being twice as restrictive for the R5, requiring a 6-meter setback. However, the existing dwelling would be located in that front yard setback, being a non-conforming use. The zoning standard for, side yards are extended to 4 meters, which would comply with the new zone, and the subject property, any additional structures on the property would need to comply with the zone standards and the accessory structure standards found within the land use bylaw. Item 6 comments from the engineering department highlighted no major concerns with the site. Wastewater capacity is sufficient to support the proposal of the additional dwelling units, and wastewater betterment charges would apply, providing funding for future infrastructure improvements. The adequacy of the capacity is in part determined by the change from 3 to 4 units. The town's design and construction standards consider 3-unit buildings to fall under the category of a single unit, which are judged at a standard of 3.35 people per unit. The proposed 4-unit would be categorized as a multi-unit dwelling, which is 2.25 persons per unit value. And as such, the 4-unit would be lower estimated wastewater output than the 3, just based on the theoretical persons per unit. Should a 5th unit be proposed on the site, the wastewater betterment charges accrued from the development would be used to offset the marginal increase in flows. Public participation meeting was scheduled on June 17th, 2026. There was 1 registrant for the meeting. However, they were simply interested in the process and ultimately did not come. Is therefore staff's recommendation that council get first reading to the proposed map amendments and schedule a public hearing for August 10th, 2026 during the regular meeting of council at Town Hall.
Great. Thank you, Connor. Questions for Connor? No? Okay. All right. I'm looking for a motion then from council. Councilor Fashir.
Yes, your worship. I move that town council for the town of Bridgewater hereby conduct first reading of bylaw number 242, a bylaw for map amendments to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to currently redesignate the property at 130 Dominion Street from the low density residential designation to the medium density residential designation, and to rezone the property from the 2-unit residential R2 zone to the medium density residential R5 zone, and schedule a public hearing for the August 10th, 2026 meeting of Bridgewater Council.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Wynot. Further discussion? Just eager.
Yeah.
It's not even that late.
I was just
Thank you, council.
take our time with it right now. All those in favor? Those opposed, motion is carried.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Almost to the end. 11.5 Sustainable Communities Challenge Fund.
So this is quick. The joint.
Oh, that's the, now it's going to be long. We're going to have a
This
big
is going to be a
debate.
long one. The Joint Services Board at their meeting last week received a report from their staff. They are looking at a proposed project of a reuse center, and they're proposing to apply for funding under the Sustainable Communities Challenge Fund. The estimated project cost is around $107,000. Because they are a municipal corporation, in addition to the board's motion to support the application, the funder also requires a motion from the partner units or the owners. So recommendations gone to the town of Bridgewater, District of Lunenburg, and the town of Mahone Bay, requesting that each respective council pass a motion to support the submission of the application under the Sustainable Communities Challenge Fund.
This was presented at MJSB and very well received by the board members. And the timing was perfect because Mayor McLean Weil had just spoken to folks down in Yarmouth who have a reuse center and this has some staff time, but then they have volunteers coming in from some charitable organizations who manage it while it's operating. Because not operating all day, every day. There's set hours. And I can't remember the number she gave, but it was a significant amount of funds raised for those charities. Did they say last year was 14,000 or 24,000? It was a big number for a local charity. So there is a staff person or someone who goes in, and if you've dropped something off, the idea is if it needs a little bit of work to get it up and running, they can do that work to get it up and running. So it's not a place for you to take your broken TV that will never be fixed. But if it, works, but the cord is chewed and you can replace the cord kind of thing, that's what it's for. And then the proceeds go to an organization and someone else will get something really cheap. So yeah, really well received. So I suspect the other municipal units will hopefully be looking at this as well, but looking for a motion. Councilor Conklin, thank you.
I move that town council for the town of Bridgewater support the submission of an application by the Municipal Shared Services Board for the Sustainable Communities Challenge Fund to offset a portion of the cost to set up a reuse center at South Shore Waste Solutions at a total project cost of $107,000.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Frazier. Further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed, motion is carried. The only other item we have is the June monthly report from the Lunenburg County Senior Safety Program, and busy again, lots of programs that they're offering. So I would encourage folks to look at that, and if you're a senior in need of those services, there is contact information there for the services that they provide and the clinics and things like that. We do have an in-camera meeting following this under Section 22.2A and 22.2H of the Municipal Government Act, but I am looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Newell and seconded by Councillor Frazier, we are adjourned.